Emma Collins stood frozen at the altar of St. Michael's Cathedral, her ivory silk dress feeling like a costume from someone else's life. The ornate stained glass windows cast rainbow shadows across her trembling hands as she clutched her bouquet of white peonies. 200 guests sat in perfect silence, their faces a mixture of shock and pity. "I can't do this, Emma," James Blackwood whispered, his voice carrying across the cathedral's acoustics. "I'm sorry, but I just can't." The words hit Emma like physical blows. She had dreamed of this moment for 2 years, ever since James had proposed during a romantic dinner overlooking the city. Now, standing in her grandmother's pearl earrings and the dress she had saved for months to afford,
harmless,
Emma felt her entire world crumbling beneath her feet. The mother's ultimatum, 30 minutes earlier, Emma had been putting the finishing touches on her makeup in the bridal suite. When Victoria Blackwood entered without knocking, the woman moved like a predator in her designer navy suit, her silver hair perfectly styled, her cold blue eyes calculating. "Emma dear, we need to talk," Victoria had said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Emma had turned from the mirror, her heart already beginning to race. Something in Victoria's tone set off every alarm bell she possessed. "Of course, Mrs. Blackwood. Is everything ready?" Victoria had smiled then, a sharp expression that never reached her eyes. "It depends entirely on you, my dear." She had placed a manila folder on the dressing table with deliberate precision. Emma's hands had shaken as she opened it, revealing copies of her financial records, her employment history, even photographs of her modest apartment in the Arts District. 43,000 in student loans, Victoria had recited like she was reading a grocery list. A one-bedroom rental apartment. A 10-year-old Honda Civic. "Tell me, Emma, do you really think you're suitable for the Blackwood family?" Emma had felt her face burn with humiliation. "I work hard, Mrs. Blackwood. I'm a pediatric nurse at Children's Memorial Hospital. I help save children's lives every day." "How noble," Victoria had replied with a dismissive wave. "But hardly the foundation for a marriage into one of the city's most prominent families. James has a future in politics, Emma. He needs a wife who can elevate his status, not drag it down with her working-class background." The cruelty of those words had stolen Emma's breath. Working-class background, as if her father's years as a firefighter and her mother's work as a school secretary were somehow shameful. As if the scholarships she had earned through academic excellence meant nothing. The choice. "That wasn't, I'm prepared to offer you a way out," Victoria had continued, pulling out a check. $50,000. Enough to pay off your loans and start fresh somewhere else. All you have to do is walk away. Tell James you've realized you're not compatible. I'll save everyone the embarrassment of a marriage that's doomed to fail." Emma had stared at the check, her vision blurring with unshed tears. "You want me to leave James at the altar?" "I want you to be realistic about your place in the world, dear. James will thank you for this someday. You'll both be happier with people from your own social circles." The dismissal in Victoria's voice had been absolute. To her, Emma wasn't a person with feelings and dreams. She was simply an obstacle to be removed with the right amount of money. "And if I refuse?" Victoria's smile had turned genuinely frightening. Then you'll discover just how difficult life can become for someone in your position. Medical careers are surprisingly fragile things. Emma, references can be withdrawn. Professional reputations can be questioned. I would hate for your dedication to children to be overshadowed by questions about your judgment." The walk of shame now, standing at the altar with James's rejection echoing through the cathedral, Emma realized that Victoria had already won. James's. The weak apology wasn't genuine remorse, it was relief. Relief that his mother had given him an excuse to escape a marriage he had apparently never wanted. Emma's hands moved automatically, placing her bouquet on the altar steps. She turned to face the congregation, 200 pairs of eyes watching her public humiliation. In the front row, Victoria Blackwood sat with perfect posture, her expression one of satisfied triumph. "I'm sorry," Emma said, her voice surprisingly steady. "The wedding is cancelled." She walked down the aisle with as much dignity as she could muster, her heels clicking against the marble floor with each determined step. Behind her, she could hear the eruption of whispered conversations, the rustle of programs being folded, the sound of her dreams being buried under gossip and speculation. Alone in the storm outside the cathedral, the autumn rain had begun in earnest. Emma stood on the stone steps, her wedding dress growing heavy with moisture, her carefully styled hair beginning to fall in wet tendrils around her face. She had no